We have patch 1.1 right around the corner, and Tower of Adversity changed its lineup for the first time. While the enemies on the first 3 floors are going to be the same, the ones that are on the 4th floor, as well as the ones in the Hazard Tower in the middle, those all got changed up. And more importantly, not only did the lineups get changed up, but we also get different passive buffs now in the 2 side towers. In this guide, I'll first cover the buffs we get, which characters benefit the most from these buffs, and then I'll also cover the lineup of enemies for each floor, and then I'll give you some strategies so that you can get the highest score that your account is capable of. First, taking a look at the new buffs, we can see that in the first tower, we will have a buff that is tailor-made for Yinlin by boosting all Resonators' electro damage by 30%, as well as buffing damage they do from off the field. For the other side, we can see that we get a spectral damage bonus, which makes sense considering Jinxi's banner is about to drop and she is a spectral character. Besides that, anytime a resonance skill does damage, the opponent will get an arrow DOT applied to them. Based on the buffs, the first side is incredible for Calcharo, Yinlin, and also for Yuanwu, since he does have coordinated attacks in his kit and he is also electro. For the second side, characters that I'd recommend are Spectral Rover, Jian if you have him, and Chixia works surprisingly decent too thanks to her resonance skill having such a low cooldown, making use of the tower buff. Of course, if you're watching this once the patch has already been released and you happen to have Jinxie, then she's gonna be your best bet for these floors. All that said, if your characters are well invested enough, then you really don't have to worry about whether the tower buff gives them anything or not. You'll be able to get at least 9 out of the 12 crests, and probably even 10 if you play well enough. As for the enemy lineups, let's cover the left tower first. The first floor is going to just have a bunch of small mobs, but the catch is that there will be 3 waves of them. Luckily, they don't have much HP, so as long as you have decent DPS, you should have no trouble finishing it with over 3 minutes left on the clock. One little trick you can use if you aren't one of those crackpots running Yang Yang as your main DPS is to just slot her in as a sub DPS here to make grouping enemies easier. Now for the second floor here, there will be 2 waves this time around, again mostly small mobs, but there is another catch, which is that the small shroom enemies are rooted in place and aren't groupable. This means running a no DPS Yang Yang just for grouping is not very useful this time around, so ideally you want to bring characters who either have a huge AoE or make sure you have good enough DPS to be able to burst them down in time one by one. One trick you can use is to try and position yourself near the shrooms whenever you do damage, because the other enemies will just come to you anyway, so instead of chasing those, try and stay next to the shrooms. And now for the third floor. Here there are 2 waves of enemies again, and both of them have a big elite mob with a bit beefier health bar, although the one in the first wave is far tankier than the one in the second wave. As for the best way to go about it, I like to bring a character with a huge AoE burst damage or grouping to get rid of the small fry, so that I can focus my DPS on the big guys while they just get caught in the collateral. For most people's accounts right now, getting these 9 crests is going to be the ideal stopping point. But if you really want to see what the next floor is about, then let's take a look. In the first wave, you will have 2 Exile Gunners and one of the Spectral Exile Mages. Here, you want to position yourself so that they don't jump too far apart from each other, which is easier said than done. Another option is again to rely on grouping from Yang Yang, but unless she is well built on your account, I suggest not doing that, since you will want every bit of DPS you can squeeze out on your team to actually have a chance of getting 1 or 2 crests here. Although as far as getting the next set of rewards goes, getting just 1 is also enough if you can get 2 on the 4th floor of the other side of the tower. After you finish this wave, you'll be up against the Morning Ike's boss. This one is the equivalent of difficulty 2 hologram as far as the moveset goes, without the triple laser beam spam and without the flying grab attacks, and somewhere around hologram 5 as far as his health pool goes. One easy trick to dodging his moves is that whenever you see a circle of light flash around the boss, that is when you should be dodging. The one exception to this is his overhead slam attack, which is part of his 3-hit combo he sometimes does. There, you have to delay your dodge a bit. So having covered the left tower, let's take a look at the right tower. Here on the first floor, you will again have a bunch of small mobs, but the big difference is that they all spawn in a single wave. So what you see when you start the challenge is all you need to kill to finish it. You can either go with the previous strategy of using Yang Yang to group them up, or use someone who has a huge AoE to nuke them down. The second floor is going to be a bunch of wolves, and the way this floor works is that whenever you kill a small enemy, A new one will spawn in for a total of 6 small wolves, including the initial 4 that spawn in. As such, ideally you want to focus down the big guy first, and the small wolves will usually just die to collateral damage. Again, Yang grouping or a big AoE are very helpful here. Now onto the third floor. You're gonna be up against a group of exiles. 2 elites, the knife guy and the spectral mage, and 3 gunners. Using grouping from Yang here is tricky because the elites tend to just jump out of stun lock after they take a few hits, so you might be better off just using a sub DPS who adds more damage instead. I like to focus down the gunners first because they are annoying and they also have much less health than the elites, meaning they die faster. After that, I turn my focus to the elites. The knife guy will follow you around anyway, so he will be taking collateral even when you are focusing down the gunners. Generally speaking, focusing down ranged or stationary enemies first is a good rule of thumb because chasing an enemy who would come to attack you in melee range anyway is just a waste of time. Now for the fourth floor. This will just be a single boss chamber where you're up against the Impermanence Heron. No mobs this time around, which means no AoE required. It's time to whip out your highest single target DPS team. The Heron likes to fly around and run away from you. So if your team has a particular burst window, try to time your damage so that you don't end up wasting most of it while he is up in the air or over on the other side of the arena. Besides that, all his attacks are pretty well telegraphed and he doesn't hit particularly hard compared to the hologram version, so really just focus on doing as much DPS as you can. This one is generally speaking a lot easier to get the 2 crests on, so if you are aiming for that 21 out of 30 crest clear, then I suggest you keep trying on this one to get the 2 crests, and then on the left side of the left tower, you should just be aiming for the 1 crest on floor 4. That covers both side towers, and really should be the point where you're stopping unless you're whaled out. But if you're a whale, brother, why are you watching this guide? You can probably clear the tower better than me. Just go and do it, man. For the middle tower, I really strongly suggest you wait at least until Union level 50, where you can level up your character's fortes and weapons some more for a much needed DPS boost. Right now, even with my highest DPS team and playing out of my mind, the best I can do is get a 1 crest clear, which isn't really doing much in terms of getting me more rewards. Anyhow, having covered specific strategies for each floor, now let's take a look at some more overall strategy for how to clear the tower more efficiently. First and foremost, you're going to need at least 2 DPS characters. Whether that is 1 for each side tower or if you want to mix and match how you clear the 2 towers, that's up to you. Either way, you will need 2 DPS because of the way the Vigor system works. Each character gets 10 Vigor, and each tower, when fully completed, uses up 10 Vigor, each floor using the same amount of Vigor as the number of the floor. So floor 1 uses 1 Vigor, floor 2 uses 2, and so on. One strategy you can use if one of your 2 DPS characters is way more invested in is to use them to clear floors 1 and 4 on each side tower. Since floor 4 is the biggest DPS check, using the highest DPS character you have for both floor 4s is ideal. If you don't feel ready for that and you just want to full clear floors 1 to 3, then using your highest DPS characters for floors 2 and 3 in both towers instead is going to be the move for you. This way, your lower DPS character can handle floor 1 on both sides, and then you can finish up the slightly harder floors with your higher DPS character. Saving your more invested and higher power characters for the later floors is generally what you want to be doing, even more so when it comes to powerful supports such as Verena. Having her buffs up for floor 4 of each side of the tower is way better than wasting her Vigor on floors 2 and 3, where you could have easily cleared even without her buffs. Another little tip is that you can actually swap around the echoes and weapons of your characters once they finish their runs. This lets you cut down on the number of required echo sets and weapons you need to farm and level up. So that just about covers everything I wanted to talk about in this little guide for Tower of Adversity. Hopefully it can help you get at least an 18 out of 30, but maybe even a 21 out of 30 clear. If you liked the video, then, leave a like, and if you didn't, then leave a dislike, that's also fine. And let me know in the comments below how your tower runs went, like how many crests you got. I'm actually kind of interested, like how my viewers are doing in these. And so yeah, that's about it. And if you want to see more videos like this one, then make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm Dr. Misk. Until next time, peace!